Hello everybody and welcome back to Plumbers and Ties. So let's check the galleries, specifically the video galleries. They also have an image gallery as well as unused and deleted scenes, but those are just pictures, so they're not particularly compelling to look up. Let's instead check the video gallery.
At the cap.
We already did in the first part, Shiroi. So
do it again.
Well,
once per video.
Sorry, Shiroi, but for now we're going to instead check out the dawn of CD-ROM. So for those of you who are not there when CD-ROM became a thing, like I was, let's let some experts tell you about it.
How else are we gonna pad out the game?
For all you kids out there.
Well, Shiroi, this game is now 40 years old, so yes, it might be necessary.
The big promise of CD-ROM
should be doing these interviews in picture form.
Of memory capacity compared
with speech bubbles.
Considering these are supposed to be actually informative, I'd rather have it these.
It felt like it was kind of limitless when we came to CD-ROM. It was so much storage for that time. You know, hard drives alone were usually just in like the tens of megabytes in the 80s, and here came like this little plate and it was giving you 650 megabytes of data, and that was a lot at that time.
A good friend of our family was always really up on the latest technology, and he showed me a CD-ROM drive for the first time. No games at the time, but it was an old CD-ROM drive that you loaded.
Hey, John Linneman from Digital Foundry.
Put the disc in this plastic tray, close the flap, slide that thing in, and it seemed like infinite data. So just the fact that you could cram it full of stuff immediately in my
He's a big Sonic fan, by the way, Shiroi, in case you don't know.
I only saw that medium as music, and I just didn't understand how it worked, so it just didn't make any sense to me. It felt like when my friend showed it to me and put the CD in there, I just didn't believe him that it was games and it was going to work.
When I first encountered CD-ROMs, I was deeply skeptical on
in terms of like CD technology, it really it took to the PlayStation for it to really
did not impress me after the first few minutes.
Well, in computers, like they're saying right now, in computers it already had taken off.
CD for consoles is what I mean.
I was very sensitive to loading time.
Not to mention CDs became... not to mention the moment they became available commercially, they became the de facto way to listen to music on the go. So.
Also, please remember the whole thing that the birthday PlayStation was that it originally was supposed to be an add-on for the Super Nintendo. Then they tried again with the Philips CDI. It didn't work.
Hey, Mark Duddleson from My Life in Gaming.
And the chicken in the background.
Really nice renders and even videos.
All the magazines had hyped up that you could have
Kelsey Lewin, video game history,
and
Foundation co-director. Yeah. There's a lot of video game historians in these videos. And here's Corey, the other guy from My Life in Gaming.
Hyper-realistic stuff. Well, what's more hyper-realistic than pointing a video camera at someone? So, you know, you can get the best graphics on a CD that way.
So like video in the game space started with Laserdisc, right? And then it kind of went away for a while. And then now with the advent of CD-ROM, it was like, we can do this at home. And that's kind of what kicked things off.
Alright, so now we talk about CDs. Now let's talk about the full motion video format itself, as in the whole games that are full of video thing.
Full motion video,
in it. It tends to be a lot
just one example.
But you're still accomplishing that same kind of like the graphics are these real people. They are not pixels, it's real people acting out a scene.
Yeah, as opposed to thinking it isn't full motion.
Like Night Trap.
A full motion video game is a game that endeavors.
I love the massive quotations when they said graphics.
That really was the deal, Shiroi. Back when CDs first came out, Spoonie talked about his in his FMV Hell video back in the day.
I feel like a.
Hold on, I want in a moment because I want to introduce someone in a moment.
Something that feels like...
There's Josh Fairhurst, the CEO of Limited Run Games. Basically, this Plumbers and Ties release was a passion project of his, and we're going to talk about it, how much hard work he went through to get the rights to this game later.
When people were like, well,
I'm sure it was someone's passion project.
No, this re-release was his passion project. He had no involvement in the actual game.
That's what I meant,
How can we display more advanced graphics than could realistically be done in real time? That was
Limited Run, aren't they
Dragon's
handling
Lair, Mach 3, games like that.
the
I
Gex
saw that they were beautiful, but I
remaster?
also instantly recognized there was
I guess we'll have to wait and
something
see.
different about them.
But anyway,
And I
that was the big deal at the time, Shiroi. Back when CDs first became available, video game developers looked at these things. They had so much more space than cartridges and floppy disks. They had. They were also much cheaper to produce than cartridges and floppy disks, right? So developers looked at these things and thought, oh shit, these things are like laser discs. We can put movies on these things, and we can make kick-ass games out of that. So they thought, oh, we don't need to. That way we can make the games look super awesome because we're shooting actual live action, so it looks like real life and everything. It was like a big novelty for both consumers and even developers themselves at the time. But as you can imagine, it didn't take long for the novelty to wear out.
Not only that, it was a sort of a Wild West gets tamed kind of phase, because it was a case of everyone was trying to do that, so the productions were mostly cheap.
Yeah. But I'm sure you've at least heard at the very least in passing of Night Trap, Shiroi?
Yeah.
That's another FMV game from the time that got re-released by, I think it was Limited Run Games as well that re-released it, I think, but correct me if I'm wrong by any means.
I think it was from them, yes.
Okay.
Like he said, at this point I'm pretty sure it's only a matter of time where we get the town with no name too.
Or whether you're just, you know, someone's uncle, like my uncle, who had some games like that, like Mad Dog McCree on the computer.
Especially in the PC space, developers and publishers were always looking at how can we expand this out? How can we get dad playing video games and mom playing video games? Or, you know, anybody really. And there was many different types of genres and types of games.
This was meant to be the answer to those questions.
It wasn't usually not that complex.
You couldn't get my mother to play a video game.
How about you play one?
They called it
What about this one?
the Silicon Valley and Hollywood coming together. Like, what if you could just be in a movie? What if it was a movie that you could play?
That's what I love about this era, because it was so experimental, right? Like, nobody knew. Like, this end goal of just getting people onto your screen, just seeing full color, or even just 256 colors representing people on a computer. That was nuts. Heck, even just still frames, right? Just a still picture. It sounds silly, but honestly, for that period, that was not a trivial thing to do on these machines, right? So all of this stuff was kind of coming together, and it just, you know, it created the FMV genre.
When you had CD-based consoles, at least that early, this was like the only type of.
I mean, it got to the point here where one of the major selling titles for the Philips CDI is a compilation of photos that's literally called The Flowers of Robert Mapplethorpe. And it has no gameplay, you just scroll through photos of flowers.
So a slideshow.
Basically.
It made use of the potential of that medium in a way that traditional games really couldn't.
Yeah, it didn't take long for the video game community to realize that they bought a bunch of games that were huge piles of dog shit. And basically, we officially declared the FMV was dead, much like Disco back in the 70s.
Of the actual cost of creating these things, especially if you're filming real actors and real sets.
The reality of it was that a lot of these games just weren't actually very fun. So if video games aren't fun and the production values aren't Hollywood level, then you just are kind of pushing buttons to a bad movie, which is not really what I think anyone had in mind.
You know, once you've gotten the entire story, then there's nothing else. And that's one of the good things about Night Trap, is that you can play through it several times and always see like some new stuff.
Night Trap
got that face in the background.
Yep.
That it's one of those.
It's the bomber,
they
I
took
think.
the concept of using security cameras and they plugged it into the game itself, where you would actually be watching something that happens that you don't have direct control over. You just had control over the feeds.
Developers, as often happens, saw an example of success in, say, Seventh Guest, in Night Trap, and these kinds of games that do...
Alright, so this guy, Adi Soli, he's the product director. In fact, he's the one who handled the upscaling process, and we're going to talk about how it was handled. It's actually pretty interesting.
Of kind of very loose, like quick time-based video gaming. And so the games themselves became more limited in its genre than it actually needed to be.
It's good to go back and reevaluate and kind of understand what those games were about and what they could be, what people tried to make of them.
Even though we have so many more genres of games now and so much more technology to do this in a full 3D space, I think there's still the sense of that realism and the fact that our eyes connect with these characters in a different way, the fact that we know they're real, I think this can be used effectively still to this day.
Yep.
So
FMV games still exist, but they're still not very popular.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a thing.
Yeah, so how did you guys even learn about this game in the first place, guys?
On the Angry Video Game Nerd, dissecting it, and then just being like, well...
Of course.
Of course, not just like me.
Didn't believe
Yep.
that there was any way that this game was actually real, then had to track down a copy of it and play it, and yeah, it's worse than that video would lead you to believe.
This isn't a game.
I feel like if you're in the gaming space enough, you've at least heard the name Plumbers Don't Wear Ties.
Yeah, it started. The game was actually, for the most part, forgotten. It was James Rolfe that really made it into, like, the memes basically were generated by James's review.
I subscribe to something called Electronic Entertainment, E2, by the way.
Because remember, that was back when James Rolfe was at the peak of his popularity, right? So he had a lot of eyes on his videos. So yeah, him reviewing that game was basically what triggered it.
Back and you're going to start to find a whole selection of adult CD-ROMs. You'll see titles, you'll see advertisements. I actually got in trouble at school once for that, for having one of those magazines. They thought I brought it in.
And now, Shiroi, thanks to limited run games, this game will be immortalized forever.
That's because, again, at least on paper, limited run games wants to put a goal on preservation. That's why we've been collaborating with Konami to have a lot of their collections recently. The problem is that you told me is that apparently they're terrible at handling physical media, distribution specifically.
And I was really excited because I was like, well, I recognize that lady, she's a wrestler. And that kind of gave me a
Which
little bit of a wrong
he's pretty right about, because as somebody who's got stuff from them before, the production is not only very slow, but also it's only preservation to a certain extent, because it's still, you know, the clues in the name, limited run games. They do run out, and then you have scalpers to deal with.
Great.
And getting certain games is near impossible. Like, I remember when the physical version of Celeste dropped, you were not getting the Switch version if you wanted it. I got the PS4 version, so it was a bit easier for me, but people could, like, in under a minute, it was gone for the Switch version. Yeah, it was a nightmare.
I have Celeste on the Switch, but I got it digitally. Usually for small indie games that are like 100 megabytes inside, or like a gigabyte or whatever, usually I just get them digital because I can't be bothered to go out of my way to get a physical copy for a lot of these things, because I buy a lot of games. So it's not to mention eventually I run out of I don't have infinite space in my apartment, so I kind of have to make some decisions about which games I get physical.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because it was this game I'd heard so much.
I tend to buy indies more than once. It depends on how much I enjoyed them. Celeste is one I have more than once.
Also possibly for collector's edition bonuses, I guess.
I do have the collector's edition of Celeste, yes.
Abusive in a sense.
And one shot now.
We would make employees do that, but to us, you know, when we were like a group of like 5 or whatever people, we thought it was funny. You know, I don't do that now. I certainly don't make my new employees do that, but at the time.
You make them produce it now.
Yeah, now I'm making my employees make Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, so you know, that's a full circle.
You said your new employees.
You always want to do that.
If you want to work here, you have to play Plumbers Don't Wear Ties. That's your initiation ritual.
It's part of the interview process.
All right. So, how did this game even happen in the first place?
At the time, but without a lot of money behind it.
I feel like that's the question, is how did this happen? Because at the time that it happened, it represents a giant step back in technology on a system touted as being more capable than what came before it, right? This game came out on 3DO.
To fully understand how something like this happens on a console, you need to look at the console industry as a whole. Up until the mid-'80s or so, consoles are pretty open-ended. After that point going forward, console manufacturers actually implemented systems to essentially require developers to adhere to their standards in order to publish the games. The 3DO, though, was a very different beast. So this was the brainchild of Trip Hawkins, who was the founder of Electronic Arts. Rather than just building a box called the 3DO box, they actually built a standard.
The irony.
Sonic, Sanyo, and the like.
We were actually this close to have EA owning a console.
But along with that, they essentially left it wide open.
I've never heard of the 3DO.
The 3DO.
That's because, Shiroi, the 3DO was a thing that had a short life.
Literally, the only thing the 3DO was ever good for was introducing the Need for Speed series.
And it was mostly marketed in America. It came out on Europe, if I remember correctly, but if I remember correctly, in Europe the marketing wasn't quite very strong. And even then, it was short-lived, so a lot of people missed out. And not to mention, Shiroi, it was astronomically more expensive than the Mega Drive and the Super Nintendo.
So it kind of just sent out to die, almost.
It's not that it was sent out to die. It's not that it was sent out to die, because it actually had some really good games, Shiroi. The problem was the price point. Go on.
To answer your question, Pedro, it did come out in Europe
because they didn't understand
11 months after it came out in North America.
Let's just use photographs.
Oh, it came out in Japan before it came out in Europe.
Video master.
Oh, there you go then.
And they're just like pulling selects out of each one.
I feel like they had
and in case you wonder what the most successful game for the system was, it was the original Gex.
That makes sense.
Component and actually making that full motion video run on the platform.
Gex is that old?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Keep in mind the other thing is that most of the games that really mattered on the 3DO either have already been ported or are in the process
of. It's entirely possible that they just at some point deemed okay, we can't do this on one disc.
There's a first-person shooter called POED, which Night Dive is currently working on.
I always assumed that Gex was like a late 90s thing.
Video, I'm not sure it would have actually been feasible on that single disc.
I would think that moving from still frame to still frame could be a beautiful way to make a video game. I mean, that's what Myst is. Myst is just a series of still images stapled together, and they're stapled together in a compelling way that made it one of the most successful video games of all time. So Plumbers doesn't commit a crime just by using that format. It could have been a very effective kind of storytelling game.
They kind of just went with the easiest route possible to produce this game on as little money as they possibly could. And I feel like that lends a lot to its charm because it's just so obviously low budget.
Even though it's a low budget game, you still need to be able to develop for this platform. And that was still a taller bar to cross.
I don't know, I've seen plenty of other lower budget games with more charm than
Plumbers Don't Wear Ties obviously had to climb enough of a ladder to get over that hump to actually be able
this game feels like somebody's college film project at times.
That was James Rolfe's theory when he made his review back 12 years ago, Shiroi.
Really?
Yes.
Also, well, that's the thing. You know what also was a sort of a college project at the time? The first Doom.
Yeah.
Huh.
Because John Carmack was so obsessed he wanted a computer, but he actually stole thermite from the chemistry lab to forcefully open the door of the computer.
So let's examine the topic of so bad it's good. Why exactly do we usually remember the best of the worst?
Elaborate another time, Shiroi.
I really don't know if it's the worst, but it's really, really, really far down there.
You have to steel yourself for this game when you play it, right? But it's certainly not something you're going to forget.
There is no contemporaries. There is no comparisons. It's just that bad.
I mean,
Plumbers really is just as bad as everyone says it is.
No,
it's garbage. It is a grease fire. It is the worst of all worlds.
This game is always going to be remembered for being what it is, which is this.
Thank you for telling me this. I just bought the game.
Example of 1990s.
We have your money.
Excess.
It was probably always meant to be a campy, weird game. You know, I don't think anyone who was sitting in on those storyboard meetings was like, ah, yes, a beautiful, flawless work of art that will color people's cultural ideas for the future. You know, I mean, it's a campy game. You can have fun with camp, right?
The goofiness factor and the unexpected appearances, like a certain chicken man, it does result in something that's perhaps a little bit more memorable in a really dumb way.
It's why we like Eurovision.
No mistake. It's not good, but it's not good in a way that is good.
I'm giving it too much credit, but in a way, I guess you can accidentally say that it is the first.
Sorry, mate, that means nothing.
this style of game wasn't actually unheard of at the time, maybe in the US, but that was something that had been explored a lot on the Japanese side, where it was much more about still images, about reading.
Yeah, to be fair, yeah, the visual
audio,
novel genre was practically unknown in the West.
So basically, Shiroi, as far as these historians can tell, and they're historians, so they know what they're talking about, this was the first ever American-made visual novel.
A pioneer, true and true.
A true pioneer. See, Shiroi, this game does have its place in history.
Let's make that clear right now. But the ones I've looked at, they
Was it,
tend to be either more like cyber.
I was going to bring this up earlier, but they moved on. But like, the whole PowerPoint presentation thing is not bad. No, heck, I sit through plenty of that.
No, what he brought up earlier, sure, is that he actually does another game actually from that does something similar to this game, and that game works just fine. The problem is that this game is just made incompetently. That's the problem.
Some kind of strange and uncomfortable territory sometimes, but the fact that that she had a good time working on this game and that was very comfortable the entire time, it shows just kind of how inherently capitalistic this all was, like they were just trying to make something that they thought would sell, and and they thought that putting a woman in these kinds of situations could sell, and maybe not a reflection of the moral values of the people involved in the project.
I mean, like Shira pointed out in our playthrough, if you pick the Jane does it to get the job option, Jane is not exactly an innocent little lamb because she has handcuffs with her, and she already had
she had the outfit on under her regular outfit the whole time.
So even in the context of the game itself, Jane is not exactly an innocent little lamb herself.
Oh, but
well, this is true, yeah.
That kind of
I think I recognize that.
Maybe a better.
Oh, she's putting out.
Yeah,
she's putting. She's pointing out the otome genre about how there's a lot of stuff like that nowadays. So.
Over and over and over, and they're always.
That's much
That's
better.
a very good queer visual novel.
9 times out of 10, the story behind them isn't anywhere near as interesting as these horrible left turns and these train wrecks that we come across.
It's really...
Yeah, you know what we should do, actually? The otome version of this game. Basically, the story of this, but we anime portraits of the characters.
Yeah, Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, the anime edition.
People always remember the greatest games.
Again, it wouldn't be too different than a full boyfriend when you really get down to it.
Well, Shiroi, it would still be better than that car crash manga we've read.
Being the best of the worst is almost as good as being the best of the best.
I believe it was Tio who actually bought me Heart of the Woods from my wish list.
It might have been there, yes.
It's Plumbers Don't Wear Ties.
Yes.
Brilliant.
All right, the whole what's the first scene that comes to mind? I don't find that particularly interesting. Let's instead check James Wolfe's reflection on making this game popular on the internet.
Oh no, what have I done?
This is all.
This is all your fault.
These are the consequences of your actions.
Like a movie catalog. And
I mean, Limited Run Games could have done anything. They could have got to work on doing that Gex thing a lot sooner. They were wasting their time on this.
And it was like, wow.
I mean, considering the way they talk about the process, it probably wasn't a waste of time for them.
CDs for that
no, that's the thing, Dwebs. That's the thing, Dwebs. Remember what Josh said, the CEO of Limited Run. Like, this was a passion project for him because he really wanted to get this game out there.
Also, it's nice to know that James found the time for this interview.
Well, he's getting paid for this too, so there's always time when you're getting paid.
You know, you're touching.
Well, I am curious. I'm guessing, knowing what we know now, I guess the game was actually discovered instead by Mike Matei, and
yes.
he suggested it to James.
Well, according to him in this video, it was suggested immensely by fans, apparently. He got a lot of fan requests to review this game specifically.
The game did have some sort of small circulation.
It did have, but James was the one that made it explode.
Yeah, obviously.
All those childish games, you know. We're all done with that now. Now we're going into real games. Yeah, I didn't know anybody who had a 3DO. I guess it was just too expensive. And I didn't really get a taste of it other than those commercials. Not until I started doing the nerd videos. So I never heard of
At
Plumbers
least it
Don't
was
Wear
working
Ties
better
until
than the
fans
Atari Jaguar,
requested
but
it.
that's
So
not saying a lot.
I had to try
Yeah,
it
the
out.
box says 17 and under, but that decision about the whole, the boss turning into a perv, it says like, it must be 18 to look over at this decision. In that case, you should put 18 on the box itself, you idiots.
This was before the creation of the SRB, right?
It was, but still, even from a basic ratings logic, it makes no sense to do it that way. It's just moronic.
Miscommunication between the dev team and the manufacturing company.
It's like if I'm watching. It's like if you're rating a porno. Note: you must be 18 for the parts where there's sex in it. Like, and it's just like, no shit, Sherlock. Like,
sort of reaction video, almost. I'm just going through it and being like, what the hell is this? That kind of thing. Like, there wasn't really a whole lot in my commentary other than just explaining what I'm seeing. As if I need...
Basically, Shiro, his review right now has 9.5 million views.
Seeing what I'm seeing. The panda head in the bedroom, the guy playing guitar with the plunger.
It's actually a really good review. Again, I do recommend watching it. That was back when he was still good at reviews.
Dark Snow Shadow actually reviewed these re-release recently. Have you checked it, Pedro?
Yes, I have. I think he was a bit harsh.
Yeah, agreed.
To be honest, but I understand at the very least some points he made.
Surprises all of us, but she actually does it. But she has like a whip and handcuffs, and she's like, okay, if I'm going to take my clothes off, I'm going to do this to the point where you're not even going to be able to handle it. I don't know what the point of the whole thing was, but it's such a weird game. The voices in it were really peculiar. Like, who do you think should make the first move? Press A now. I don't think the game was really meant to be seen by that many people. I think it was kind of just like...
Yeah, I noticed also, the voice acting for the choices that you do seems to be done by completely different people than the actors involved.
That's it. So
that's the thing, that nobody knows who made that voice. That's the thing.
I guess
probably an intern.
That person isn't even credited in the game, so...
taken serious. I mean, how could it be taken serious? But the fan response was overwhelmingly positive. Even to this day, a lot of people say, "Oh yeah, I remember your Plumbers Don't Wear Ties episode. I really like that." Or like sometimes even like that was the first one they saw. Like your Plumbers Don't Wear Ties episode was the one that introduced me to your work, and that's pretty amazing. And yeah, I don't know, that this game sort of has a legacy that's very special and very one of a kind, and I'm really happy to be attached to it in some kind of way. So yeah, I'm honored.
Now we're gonna get into the good stuff. Let's speak to Jean Bazin, the woman who played Jane. The one person they managed to get a hold of from the game.
At a young age, I knew I wanted to do.
So this is a video telling her career before the game. She was a pro wrestler, in fact. So let's hear it.
These are things that a 12-year-old, what am I thinking? I want to, what am I thinking? And my parents would just look at me and just keep moving on. So I figured, well, after high school, I'll do what I want to do. I got with an agency, and I just did one thing of extra work, the people that walk around in the background or they're sitting at the table. And then I went back to my regular job, which was drawing blood. That is a phlebotomist. That's not what I wanted to do. So that's what my parents would like me to do. So there just happened to be an audition, and I went home and I checked that audition. It was a sports TV show. I went after work. I got to the audition. There's probably 500 different ladies there, and this man, David McLean, says this show is going to be about women's wrestling, and I didn't know much about wrestling. I knew every other sport, but I'm like, oh boy. And I saw about 20 girls leave their seats and walk out the door, and I'm thinking, oh no, what do those chicks know that I don't know? But I'm young, no fear. Went down to the audition. I auditioned I went to the audition, which really was training. Mondo Guerrero was our trainer, and Mondo trained us Monday, Wednesdays, and Friday nights, so I could work and then train at night. As I kept going back, I noticed that there was less and less women, and they were weeding down 12 ladies. They wanted 12 girls to do a pilot. That's all they needed, and they had characters for each girl. So at the end of the day, I was one of the girls that they picked, and they called my character Hollywood. My tag team partner was Vine, and we did a pilot. We took it to syndication to NAPI in 1986. And at the end of January, they called and said, pack your bags, you're going to Vegas. And so I did the pilot and all 4 seasons of that show. And that's when I figured at that point, I'd like to do more TV shows or more acting. Stunt work was another thing that I got into after Glow ended. And one of my friends said, let's go on a set and I'll show you how you hustle a set. And all that means is you're going down to a set to give them your picture and resume and meet with the coordinator. So I started doing a lot of that. And then wrestling, I started my own company, Hollywood Productions. And so main thing was stunt work, some modeling, some acting, and then the wrestling. The wrestling I've done from day one. I never stopped.
Cool.
That's pretty cool, actually. Now let's see how she actually got the role.
At noontime, it was a lunch lingerie show. And Michael used to be one of the patrons.
That's the thing to it, as you're about to hear, she had a lot of fun doing this.
Probably quite a few times before he had asked about doing the game. And he lived in the area as well, and he came up to me and asked if I'd be interested in doing a video game.
There you go, she actually already knew Michael Anderson before this.
Don't wear ties. Okay, whatever.
That's literally what this is, just a bunch of friends getting together to make something dumb.
The lingerie show, and she was.
It definitely feels like that.
Which is Edward. I'd never met him before. A model. I don't know where Michael found him, but we got along very well. Oh, and then Paul Thrusher. He was a friend of mine. And I thought, oh my gosh, I have the perfect guy, sleazebag looking type of guy to be the boss. And Paul, he was perfect for the part. Poor Paul, you're not a sleazebag, you know, but he was perfect. What I remember is just one or two
the damn flows off
to do this.
Jesus.
Look at it. You get what you
so recollections from playing Jane. Please, Jean, if you don't mind.
There was a little video and then a series of stills through
making Plumbers.
We were definitely acting out the scenes.
Quote unquote.
Because as you can see, some of them look like he might have taken stills possibly off of the video and then camera shooting. There was no pre-production that I remember at all. Just show up on Sunday, 9 a.m. And the reason we did the weekends because everybody had jobs. Plus, I think Michael had a building that he worked at that was not going to have a lot of people around. And it was just Michael doing everything. I never had a bad experience through the whole thing. This was fun. He had my consent to say, yes, I'm going to kiss Edward now. Yes, you know, take off your clothes. I just, you know, now looking at it, I cringe a little bit because it's different. But everybody on set made you feel comfortable. It's a script. I'm following a script for a game. So I didn't see anything wrong with it when I was shooting it then. For the most part, we had fun, and I think everything went really smoothly. So I'm thinking the first day that we shot might have been in that parking lot at first. The footage of me driving, that's my car. However, when you cut back to the outside scenes there in Glendale, that blue car, I have no idea whose car that is. So we shot all the parking lot scenes first, and then we went into the building, and then, of course, running through the streets like we did.
Oh my God, I didn't notice that.
Any of the places. I think we were just like Ed Wood on the run. Let's go do it quick. The interesting things is I love all the places.
No, yeah, that's another thing that I was thinking. Like,
I say let's go to Alvaro Street.
Like permits are expensive.
Yeah, this is why filming in New York is all.
With a bankrupted the wall.
So I wonder if I had any input in any of where we went. I'm pretty sure it was my idea to lay down across the tracks with the train.
They probably just did the tourist shtick during those moments.
Right there, we're doing that. I think
they're
Michael
filming the
let us
game,
go
and the
with the flow.
policeman
He
comes
gave us a
by
lot
and they
of
go,
space
this
to do what
is
we
the
wanted to do. I
statue
think that's
of
what made the shoot so fun. Is letting
statues.
us do what we want to do. Hey, may I suggest this? And I probably didn't say it as nice as that. I probably said, we're going here, let's do this, blah, blah, blah. And then here's another question. Did he tell us what I should wear? Did I pick out? Because those are obviously my clothes. There's no wardrobe. There's no hair. There's no makeup. I mean, look at it. We're just like, get out of the shower, throw a little makeup on, go.
Improvising.
Alright, what's next?
Now we're going to find out how she discovered the game again years later.
You saw this where?
And I never saw the game. You know, people finish with certain projects and people move on. That's going to be something that never will happen. That's exactly what I thought. Oh, well, we shot it. That's it. I never saw the game until the internet got popular and I started getting those emails. And I'm like, what? Where? You saw this where? So I wasn't aware of the YouTube Angry Video Nerd guide. And I clicked on that.
Yeah, that's basically what happens with every major celebrity that gets involved into a meme.
But he was so funny because basically he's saying these things.
It's a reality check.
Them, but he's saying them out loud. If you listen to
Core memory unlocked.
And it's so funny.
This is what you were in.
So
you were in a glorified slideshow.
This thing that we did in 1993 is this game. Either people love it or they hate it, or they think it's funny, and you have fan clubs of Jane. And then I looked at the views. I'm like, this game is in the millions. People are actually checking this shit out. I'm sorry. But yeah, I hadn't thought about it in years. So to see this coming back up and to have somebody remember that, that's cool. So I'm getting a new set of fans that I love. And I can't wait really to meet them and talk to them all about and answer their questions.
Jean comes across as a really cool lady.
Yeah.
Would I do it again? Absolutely, yes. Of course. It was fun. No regrets. You can always say no to any situation that you're in. Stand your ground. I had to do that a few times.
Plumbers don't wear two ties.
And early 90s. And I just, walk and go to the next audition, the next gig. But never be afraid to say no. Stand up for who you are. I always did that. Have an open mind, but I think you're going to have fun when you play the game. And you're going to go, oh, that's not so bad. What, they're saying this, they're saying that? I've seen way more than that. I think you'll love it.
So
that's what I said.
So there you go, Dwebs. As she said in the previous video, would she do it all again? Yes, because it was fun. So there's that.
I mean, I'm glad they have fun making it. It's just,
the process of bringing it back.
Yeah, so this is the story. Listen to this. This is my favorite extra, in fact.
Back in 2016.
No, you'll see those.
I thought that it was with whoever owned Kieran Entertainment, which was the publisher on 3DO. So I looked up Kieran Entertainment. I went through all of these records with the California Secretary of State. I found all of these business records that were associated with Kieran Entertainment. It was like Digital Stuff Incorporated and all these weird things I've never heard of.
All the bureaucracy.
I tried everything I could in my power.
Wow, he really went digging.
He did.
For white pages. I got phone numbers. I cold called those phone numbers. I sent mail to the registered address of these companies. And
don't you see this? What you have here is the result of 4 years of hard work.
Is actually just a random.
There's probably more work
put
into that than the actual game itself.
There is no mailbox there. There is nothing to actually receive mail. So of course, my mail came back like 2 months later is undeliverable because
that's literally the end of a creepypasta. I turned around and the place was gone.
So
it's like that.
After 4 years of trying that,
it's like
I wrote to our lawyer
kind of
said,
Chris
hey,
tried to find that
what
address
recommendations do you have
where you send in that stuff and that your rose. It turned out just an empty building.
I guess I was just really stupid, and I never searched the copyright database. I'd always searched the trademark database, which doesn't really provide you with a lot of information. But the copyright database will have emails occasionally. So I was able to find the copyright for Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, and then there was this name on it for the guy who had started United Pictures, which was the developer of the game, and clicked on his name, and I got some other things like a diet program he had developed. So I clicked on that, and then boom, his email address was there for this diet program copyright. And I was like, holy shit.
Okay.
Got the way to contact whoever has the copyright. So I emailed him, and he was like, wow, I'm surprised anyone is interested in this. And, within a couple weeks, it was all negotiated and done, and we were able to pick up the rights to restore and remaster Plumbers Don't Wear Ties. And I felt
never underestimate gamers, seriously.
Off my shoulders. I felt this, 4 years of effort just finally coming together.
We believe we can contextualize this game in an interesting way that will make it not only like the best way to consume the game, but to understand what it was, how it could have happened. We found that idea super fascinating.
So I discovered Plumbers at work. It was something that was floating around at the time, and Joe, he basically was like, hey, you want to know what this is? And he sent me the link to a video by Angry Video Game Nerd that I thought was very funny, very well made, and I was intrigued. I was like, if this is something that we're bringing back, I want to be a part of it.
When you look at a game like this, it's easy to assume, from an outside perspective,
this
that
game's got a
this
physical
is still images. It
Yes.
is just audio files being played back. That seems like basically 2 lines of code.
This version of it,
However,
I
there's
should
so much
say.
more to it because the actual
Trust me, the cover that they use for this version is much better than the original. So.
the tools back
Like
then
that's
were
tough.
much more in line of doing some operations like this in terms of FMV gaming, in terms of audio playback. Nowadays, these engines are much more about pushing polygons and allowing for much bigger games. When you actually have to scale it down to something this simple, it leads to a lot of interesting challenges that you don't foresee.
Top level, when you're looking at what you need to do, it's pretty straightforward. But actually coding it out was a little bit difficult because Unity doesn't necessarily have like a timer function. You have to build all of that from scratch and make sure that things flow correctly into each other. So there was a little bit of headache of making sure that, okay, this scene needs to follow up after this scene. And sometimes you mess up. So you got to really go and figure out, okay, what broke.
There's some fan assets and sites that show a lot of the differences between the 3DO and the PC version, and then include information about like the timestamps and stuff like that. Things that made it super useful for us to very quickly break apart the game and rebuild it exactly how it was, right down to like the millisecond of how these things are timed out.
We were given a lot of assets from the older title, even lots of code too, but it was very difficult to understand how to implement that in something like GameMaker or Unity, so we had to start from scratch. One of the biggest and most difficult things that we had to figure out was allowing the player to essentially skip through some of the scenes, just so that they don't have to sit through one that they've maybe already seen. They can just skip right to the decision part of it, or just skip the next scene. That was a little bit difficult trying to get that to work with the timer, making sure that when
Yeah, obviously the source code for the game was lost, so they had to actually properly rebuild
We
it.
never wanted to try and approach this game by just putting it back out exactly as it was. We don't think there's a lot of value in that package, even if you remaster like the photos and the one video that's in there. So it basically became like, well, what can we do to create a value around this? And the value we thought that made the most sense was playing it very straight, contextualizing and telling a story about how this game exists, finding the right people who would have something meaningful to say about it, and maybe using it to make a living history piece as opposed to just a remastered version of an old game.
You shouldn't spend money on that original version because it's hundreds of dollars and very hard to seek out. But with this limited run version, it is as easy as either downloading it digitally or preferably
what's it cost on eBay?
to own in your own collection.
That's another thing of the goals of game preservation, to avoid also the inflation of the cost of the original, because a lot of times that happens too.
Especially in the Western hemisphere of video games.
£233.97.
I'm pretty sure before this one costed even more.
It's even crazier that it was brought back in 2022.
I like doing unexpected things, and I feel like providing a remaster to this level of Plumbers Don't Wear Ties is a very unexpected thing. So that's
the game, so I get the feeling the game was originally supposed to come out in 2022,
Yeah,
but it got delayed.
but there was a bit of a delay without any major announcement before. So yes,
more with it, if there ends up being demand for a sequel, plumbers still don't wear ties. You know, we could do that because I actually, you know, I was reading while I was researching the IP on Google. There was actually plans for a second Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, and some assets may actually exist for that floating around in the ether. But you know, this kind of goes hand in hand with trying to find the IP. A lot of the people that worked on the game are kind of like lost to time. Even the people that I have found from that game, like they don't list United Pictures on their resume. So it's like
Josh is very curious about the who knows,
this specific thing.
I don't know if stuff for Plumbers Don't Wear Ties 2 will ever turn up, but you know, if there's a possibility.
Plumbers Don't Wear Ties 2. Make it happen, limited run.
The business.
What if they don't want to be
I would
found?
certainly do it. Again, I think that would be super.
Well, Dwebs, Josh here has already proven that he won't give up on finding it, so he will find it. Alright. The other videos are mostly just trailers and audio commentary stuff that I don't find them particularly interesting.
Actually, I'm interested about in the why.
The Y one? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll check out the Y one.
Plumbers Don't Wear Ties returning is an example of how YouTube culture and memes can manifest themselves into...
Obviously, it's for video game preservation. That's the basic argument.
I think the most common question when
why? I
saying that
actually got
Plumbers Don't Wear
curious.
Ties is
But why, though?
Why?
Well, let's see what they answer,
That's
Shirley.
almost more enjoyable than getting to
She's a video game historian, so obviously she's going to give you the game preservation is important answer.
Why are they wasting their time doing this?
They're also going to be more specific, Shirley, and say that crappy games are just as important to preserve as good games. We shouldn't discriminate when it comes to video game preservation, they say.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, to be fair, that is the right way to go about it.
Yeah, preservation doesn't only extend to the games you like, or you think are worth it.
From this perspective of who else would bother.
Ideally, preservation should apply to all games.
Game of all time to the level that we are trying to remaster it in terms of adding all these extras and these exclusives.
I mean, there are plenty of reasons somebody would want to like get a hold of a game that's not good.
Like pretty much, okay, aside from Waves because it's mostly indifferent, but pretty much most of us don't like the 13 trilogy Final Fantasy, but that doesn't mean that it shouldn't be released.
No.
Capacity.
No.
It's on Steam, so at least it's available on PC, but the problem is that the PC ports are not great, though.
They require extra management, and modern consoles do not have them.
And like, what's even silly?
I'm sure at some point they'll re-release it when they run out of other games to re-release.
You know, like
It's only a matter of it's more a matter of when rather than if.
In the bottom of the barrel.
There's no cash.
They recently released the Pixel remaster, so the first 6 are covered. 7 is available everywhere, so that one's covered. Same thing for 8, same thing for 9. 10 and 10.2 are well. 12 as well. Yeah.
Basically, when it comes to Final Fantasy, on PC you can play almost the entire mainline franchise.
When it comes to modern current consoles, the 13 trilogy is the only one, actually, I think, that's not available. So I'm pretty sure those are probably the next ones.
Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, but does anyone actually know Plumbers Don't Wear Ties?
How many people really know the bad games or have had a chance to play them? And I feel like from a historical perspective, somebody needs to be making these historically
What differences
bad
is there
games
between
accessible
the
again, so
PS4
people
and
can
PS5 versions
satisfy
of this
that
game? I wonder.
curiosity
There are none.
Probably nothing.
Understanding
It
why
loads
these
slightly
games are so
faster.
bad.
That's why I really like to see projects like these.
Well,
is
I doubt it, Dibs,
contextualize
because
things in a different space
the PS4 version of this game, as well as Fairfence Reference Record, load faster on the PS5 than on the PS4. So I'm assuming it can't be that much of a difference. Like,
There's a game that I mentioned before, it's called Poed, which is a first-person shooter, but it's more of a comedy than anything. I think it got on a PlayStation, but it mostly was on the 3DO. And Night Dive Studios, which is basically the old-school FPS equivalent of Bluepoint, actually did recently announce that they're also bringing it back to current system. So actually, that's pretty cool too.
Engage this game.
Remaster actually only came out over a month ago.
High art at the time of its release. We understand this, and Plumbers is certainly not high art, but it's a part of our culture, right? And it
yeah, that's actually a good comparison, because a lot of paintings were done for the people that from the artists and were not originally meant to be viewed in the public. Like the one that Francisco Goya had in his attic about, I think it's Uranus eating his children.
There's a strong
I was about to
argument
say, a
for
lot
the
of
preservation
artists,
of the worst
like
games
painters
ever made
and
being
such, aren't
just
really
as important as
appreciated
games
until
ever
long
made.
after they're dead.
Those
Or even
interesting
Soshiro, the actual artist was not particularly caring, like Tchaikovsky did not wanted the Nutcracker suit to be released in public, for example.
Ambitious failures are as interesting.
And yeah, I'm comparing fucking Plumbers that wear ties to the Nutcracker suit, I know, but again, it's mostly a parallel more than anything.
When they came out,
being able to actually look back at it and understand like kind of what they were doing, what the art market was like at the time, why does this exist? When you're looking at this as a complete sort of time capsule, I think it becomes a lot more compelling.
I hope that what we're doing with this game can contribute to what its final legacy will be.
I think, like myself, there is a subset of people that find this era of video game history like just fascinating. I gather that those people are the ones that are actually like, okay,
perhaps, well, if they can ever get the emulation working right, maybe some Sega Saturn games
and this made me
in the
very happy
future
for the
people
reasons
could
of,
try
like,
and
game preservation that come to a
preserve.
place where people kind of like,
Sega has been trying to do something via one Polish studio for House of the Dead and Panzer Dragoon.
these greatest 8-bit games put in the compilation. It's not just about that anymore.
I think the time is ripe for games like this to be reevaluated, and specifically this one, because it is so unusual for, in terms of its content and its structure.
I'm kind of hoping it inspires people to make games.
Even not just games this old, like Sega, can you like re-release your early 2000 Sonic catalog at all, please? Thank you.
Well, supposedly we're getting a Sonic Heroes remake.
So I want to say thank you for supporting an effort to.
If that happens, I'm warning the internet now. I will be insufferable.
Oh, especially towards that, Jim, can imagine.
Well, I mean, hey, if by remaking it means redoing the voice acting, I can actually put up with Tails in that game.
Yeah.
Unexpected, forgotten, but historically significant to some level. Games that other people might not touch.
Like I said, the town with no name next. I fucking dare you.
Wide amount of appeal.
Is that really cheap looking one?
The Western one that's done in MS Paint, yes.
Oh, MS Paint, that's a good start.
Hey, what about Kung Fu?
Alright, the rest is mostly true. There's also an audio commentary actually with Gene Bazone even doing it, but it's 40 minutes long, it's the entire game, so we're not going to do that. We're going to end this with AI upscaling the hard way, which is actually really good information about how the AI upscaling was handled, which is pretty cool in my opinion, so let's take a look at it.
So when it came to actually AI upscaling this game, that was a gigantic task that I don't think I was fully prepared for, but when I came into the company, I was the only one that had true kind of involvement in the AI scene. I'd worked in Japan, and in Japan I worked very closely with the advent of AI upscaling in anime and then visual novels as well. I had dabbled a little bit into doing real photographs.
Yeah, Square Enix uses this for most of its remasters actually, so yes, Japan actually is very into it.
And that was a big problem because we had about 800 images that then needed to go from 640 by 480 index colored BMP images into fully upscaled, clear photographs. So when I sat down to plan this out,
for me the major
AI used for completely the wrong thing.
Yeah. For me the major problem is when they just put the thing on an AI upscaling algorithm and just let it do the thing and call it a day. But this guy didn't actually do that, as you're about to hear.
The results that came from that was kind of twofold.
I don't have a problem with AI as a tool. I just think mega corporations suck.
Obviously.
Shrubbery, this kind of stuff.
Oh, even just regular schmoes using it wrongly suck.
That's why I did. That's why, unlike someone like Teo and Jova Show, I didn't have a problem with the ramen episode of the first 12 game because I actually agree with Tatsuya Kondo on that topic. So.
And we can't go over this. There was another AI model that had been put into use, and it made everyone come out like kind of fried chicken texture, and I was like, I don't think this is going the right direction. So what I decided to do was I have the connections to get in touch.
At least you didn't got the 6 fingers, Marco Vista.
Yeah, everybody has fingers in the correct places.
I upscale. What I'm going to do is I'm going to teach or feed my own AI model and basically have it recognize you. But I need a lot of references. Can I use images of you? And can you supply them to me? And she was very happy. She was kind of like, this is really cool. And so we started to get to work. And it took me about 3 weeks to really create a model that I was satisfied with. The problem I had now introduced was that I had a model.
I mean, it's also different if the AI you're using is of your own creation and you're feeding it from your own thing.
And like you said, in this case, the data that was fed was actually given consensually rather than just being stolen artistry.
It's not like he just nicked it off him.
Now everyone looks like Edward much more.
That kind of thing is fine, in my opinion.
Basically, I had 3 different.
And like I said, the upscaled version of the game, you can still play the game on the original filter as it was in the 3DO if you want, but honestly, I think the upscaled filter makes the game look genuinely more pleasing to the eye, so I just prefer playing the game that way, honestly.
I could hand edit all the inconsistencies. But for the general images, what I did was I ran a batch process once for every person and then once for the backgrounds. I would take those results and actually composite them together from their individual sources into one image.
But yeah, to recap, Adi Sorley here actually got photos from both the actors who played John and Jane. The actors, because the Edward G. Foster had is a model, so he had a lot of photos that he could use. So he programmed his AI to recognize them and make the upscaling look fine. And he made plenty of hand edits himself for the other actors who didn't have.
Or 800 images, Jesus.
Yeah, as he's about to say, it took him a whole year to do the upscaling.
Like a Kodak moment, because this game is just a sequence of Kodak moments. So what I did was basically scan my own family albums, a lot of things from different times. You scan them at a high DPI. You go in real close. What happens? Well, you start to see what is kind of the grain, how colors are blending together. And I went in and I made a custom filter that reproduced that look, that feel, to then batch process on top of the images I now reconstructed. Problem now was a lot of those old images that I had basically reconstructed 6 and 7 months prior had color balances that was out of sync with what I now needed for this new filter, which was then going to like reproduce that look. All in all, it took about, I'd say about a year from the first image to the very last one to get this all in. But as you can see in the game, I think what we managed to do was even better than actually scanning the individual images that was taken back then. And the reason why we couldn't even do that was that the original production was done on 4 different cameras. Through someone on production, Giovanni, we realized the game had been shot across some sort of bigger like studio photo camera and also a running video camera.
That's also apparently why the reason believes a lot of the photos have different aspect ratio.
And then there's actual photographs. And none of this really has survived.
Mm-hmm.
So even if we did have full access to sources, we would have to comb through the actual video and find the stills. It's interesting in the sense that I think the game was meant to.
It's a shame we couldn't get Michael Anderson to speak on the matter. I would have loved to hear him count the tales and look at the game in retrospect years later. But
not lend itself well to AI.
According to Josh Houston, apparently he couldn't contact anybody else. Because apparently Michael Anderson made this game and then he disappeared off the face of the earth.
I mean, he did get some pictures of the other main star of this.
All right. So that was it.
There we go.
All right, so that was it. Those are the reshers that I wanted to showcase. The rest are not necessarily bad. It's just that, for the sake of not staying here all the time, basically. That's it. Duez, before we go, anything you want to add about, in terms of what the extras talked about, and you want to add something to your thoughts?
Well, it's clear that the people behind this remaster put a lot of effort into it. Probably more effort than the actual original game. That's really about it. It says something when the best part of a remaster is the actual remastering effort, but the thing itself is still shit. It'd be like if in the future if we got a remaster of Sonic 06. Like, congratulations, the game actually runs sort of decently. Problem, the game still sucks at its core, so
Anything else?
Yeah, so I won't say misguided effort exactly, because like they said, it's important to not just do this kind of thing, but just for stuff that you like. On the other hand, it's all in aid of a game that is still shit. You can only polish a turd so much, and that's what this game is at last. But at least people can say I played Plumbers Don't Wear Ties on my Switch. That's a funny sentence.
You get to play Plumbers Don't Wear Ties on the go.
Yeah, I can actually
imagine pulling that out on public transport.
Yeah, or even better, you can actually do plumbing while playing Plumbers Don't Wear Ties. Imagine that, carrying a Switch of you while also doing the plumbing. Yeah, and I can't wait for the inevitable sequel. Chefs Don't Wear Boots or something.
I mean, to be fair, a game recently came out. I don't know much details, so I don't know if it really sucks or not. That is basically a spiritual successor to the Legend of Zelda CDI titles, as in having that kind of bizarre type of animation and acting to it. So who knows? Maybe we will have a spiritual successor to these two. Not necessarily a sequel, but
maybe. But yeah, for now.
All right then.
All right, Shiro, you have anything to add?
No, not much to add at this point. It was nice to get the context for everything. The when, the how, the why. We have plenty of confirmation that everything was pretty much fun to work on, and yeah, you can tell that from the way people talk about it. And yeah, that's it. These were interesting.
Theo, do you have anything to add?
Only so much little, and what the others basically said. It's very informative. It's nice where they put it, but when you really get down to it, it's also for the sake of adding content, because this is not really a long game. So possibly also to justify the price. That's why they put this bunch of extras interview, which is appreciated at the very least. So that's nice. And again, I really, as I mentioned, I really appreciate when developers try to get a bit more on it as clear, transparent level, with the consumer, and telling we did this for these reasons. Here's what we did. Here's what the negatives are, for example, what our thought process was. That's actually a nice touch, So it's appreciated. Again, it's a shame that they couldn't get the rest of the crew. It's nice that the actor that played the teacher of Plumber, Edward, did give his consent with the photos for the AI, but shame that they couldn't get him for an interview. But apparently also the director, I tried to check if it was case, maybe he was already old, maybe he's dead at this point, but no information is really given. So it's a mystery. Same goes for Mark's actor. But to be fair, if that one actually was a friend of Jean, I guess the idea of if something did happen, she probably would have said. Again, overall, it's nice. Don't make it too much of an habit, though. And sure, unless, that the message of the game preservation is really good, but keep in mind, these are still, technically, like we said, polished turds that are sold for between $20 and $60. So be cautious when you actually purchase them, It's nice that you have a way of actually playing them properly on your own, but be also informed on the matter. Pedro.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I think it's I appreciate the effort that was put in, and I do like all the information we got. And Jean Bazin does come across as a really cool person, so it's nice to get to know her on a more personal level thanks to these. And yeah, pretty cool. So that's basically it. So yeah, that's Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, everybody. I don't have anything in particular right now to stream, at least right now that occurs to me. So next time I'll pass the baton on to Teo so he can start his Dark Souls free run. So see you until then.
See ya.
See ya.